here we are Layout, and what we do is we take one of the most time-consuming process, that is the design of, in this case, office space floor plans. So it is a process that, unfortunately, in my life I had to deal with for more than a decade. It's not my favorite space, I would say, because, of course, as an architect, you spend a huge amount of time into doing test fits for people that actually, at the end of the day, maybe they like one option over 10 that you create. And that is like hundreds of hours that you spent in your life doing that. So the process of Layout, and the idea of Layout was to create a software that allows everyone, literally even people with zero experience, is able to create a design that is actually good. And then you can go and finalizing it with an architect. So the point is, this one is not taking away the position of an architect in the role, but is actually everyone is able to do it, and is full of rules that control the design. But then you can agree with an architect. And compared to, for example, when we talk with competitors, usually like we have one competitor, for example, that it's mostly not providing this kind of direct one-to-one service, because it's actually more a service than a software in our case. So what I can do is, for example, I would like to share the screen and share just how the app works, because I think everything is a lot easier when you see the way it works, because I think it's more valuable. So our app is a very simple web app. You can just create new projects, assign clients, and simply use it as a dashboard where you can pretty much like drag and drop a project. In this case, I'm going to just take a file. You upload it. And this case is a building in Berlin. I actually like it a lot, this building in particular. So you can just jump in. You get information like a gross external area, net internal area immediately. So, and you see that there's nothing now. I can just click and just count 2 to 20 seconds, depending on the type of building. You get your first options. And I didn't put anything here. I didn't put any request, because I just wanted to show that actually we can do it in a second. Then what happens? You can open the preferences, pre-fill, and say, let's say I want to have, I don't know, 10 offices, and decide I want to have this one to be 110 square feet. I want to have 10 medium of maybe 220. And you see that also a lot of other information are pre-filled, because actually we provide insights that come from the usage of other people. Like we did a lot of interviews, more than 400 interviews and surveys. So we collected data on what is the habit of people in certain dimension of offices. Advanced, you can change daylight constraints depending on where you are in the world. In this case, we put the presets also for fire regulations. You can change and customize the clearance and every single characteristics of the building. Just click apply, click again, and you get another set of floor plans. So those are generated, and once you're here, you can see the data is rapidly popping in. So you can see the area per employee, the number of workstation, the efficiency, the carbon footprint, because we also care about measuring every single element inside. So while, for example, Ardavan, you were showing the outside, the quantities in the outside, we focus, of course, in what we designed, that is the inside. So it's pretty much the middle step afterwards. And the pie chart, so in the moment in which I start to move my mouse, you can see that actually every single data is updated, because of course we provide a different evaluation of the space. And then the icons also guide you through the choices. You have the client that wants to have to spend the least amount of money, the one that wants to have the highest density, lowest carbon footprint, or the most spacious office. And then once you're here, you can, for example, jump on a floor and you get the dimensions. And this is not meant to be perfect, because actually this one was generated in 2 seconds. So of course it will not be perfect, but I can just immediately customize it. I want to have a reception here. I can just go here, reception, and you get a reception. I want this to be, for example, a lounge space. I can go seating, for example, and I can have a lounge. I want to have this one as a small kitchen, for example. I can go like office services, tea point. So you can change it very quickly and iterate, and of course visualize everything in 3D. So you can jump between 2D, 3D, update, and every change that you make in the app has a direct impact. So every change I make, I change a room, I remove some desk, I can tweak, change. You can move around. You can literally double click exactly as you do on Google Street View. You double click and you can literally jump inside the floor. You can change the visualization style. You can change the camera. You can have, for example, different ceilings. You can change and tweak on, for example, if you want to do just the schematics, many people in the call will be architects, and they are used to see like these very cool white schematics that are just help to make people understand what they're doing. So in a simple way, you can just use this one also for schematic visualization. And once you're here, you can save, you can export in multiple formats, Revit files, share links so that you actually can share on website. We have, for example, brokers that create floors, for example, or they are the design team creating floors, so they share them on the website and are very good, for example, for sharing very quickly information. And also from the cost perspective, we quantify everything that we design. So every single element is quantifiable because it's measured. So how many chairs, how many tables, you can go into the level of detail and of creating a procurement list directly. But of course, I don't need to know, for example, I don't like this part. I want to add, for example, some other details. I want to add some pods. And then I can go back, for example, let's say I'm talking to a client that wants to add more pods within a design. So they can just jump in and simply see that actually the design changed. And for some clients, for example, we activated some services, for example, for AI renders, so they can do live renders directly on the spot. So of course, we don't do it for every client, but there are some specific requests. So in reality, it's a fun way because what you see here, compared to other software, it takes roughly 1 hour to learn. And literally, we train people globally, as we are at the moment in 35 countries. And pretty much like we simply train people to use it, and they learn in literally a matter of minutes. So once you're here, you can export to different formats. So this is pretty much the way the app works. And then going from here, we pretty much generate roughly at the moment every month. So the last 30 days, we did 25 million square feet generated by our clients. And this one represent about, in a normal way, with legacy software, about 10,000 hours of work of poor architects spending millions all their nights pretty much designing. And in Layout, this process is done in 96 hours. So there is a saving from our customer of about 80 to 90% of the time. And so we get quite a lot of this kind of interest globally. But it's not only from architects, as I mentioned before, and also Nick Ness probably was going to ask me at one point, we don't work only with architects. So architects are quite an important part of our workflow, but we work with developers, working operators globally, brokers. You go from China all the way to the US, Colombia, Brazil, South Africa, Australia. India is one of the biggest markets, for example. So we work in pretty much every space because what matters is actually that what we provide is a solution to a problem that is hard felt by many people globally. And at the end of the day, we all work for the final users. They want to have an output quick and that is good enough. That is also making them feeling part of the design process, because unfortunately, the users at the end of the day are the ones that are waiting for a solution, while we provide a very quick one for them. So I'm done with the presentation. But I hope it was quick enough to give food for thoughts for everyone here.
Wonderful. That was great. Thanks for the demo. It was very helpful and insightful to look at the product and how users, the workflow, how they use it. So you mentioned that you work with architects and I believe also developers, right? And contractors. Do you work with contractors
yes,
as well?
Yes, depends. We work with I mentioned just a few typology of customers, but different countries have different type of contract. We work with contractors, design and build companies, furniture producers. We start to work with because, of course, we display furniture. It could be used as a selling tool for furniture, for example. It's one of the many ways in which we can interface clients. At the end of the day, we have different ways in which we can expand, and there are something like 20 different ways in which we can expand. Also different typologies, like we are testing with also different type of spaces, not only for example, not only commercial offices, of course. The world is big. It's the important for us is to reuse buildings to optimize the spaces, and that is what we do best.
Okay, got it. Wonderful. And then you showed us how you can select the region and the country, and you mentioned that you are right now in about 35 countries. So how does it work? Do you put the zoning and the codes and regulations and everything into the product, or it's something like like a plugin or an external
It's
resource you connect?
so yes, we learn. We talk with people globally, and we are quite lucky that actually people like to talk to us, and we get a lot of people literally gave us a lot of information. So we built the core of what we built is actually something that is very flexible and can adapt to different codes. That is even because funny enough, you go globally. I literally worked all my life in different countries, and the codes sound very different, but at the end of the day, they're very similar. They tend to have common rules. If you go in the US, the difference, for example, for the egress to escape, for escape from fire, is just a different distance. But if you go to the UK, it's just a different amount of feet you need to be far from an exit. You change values so we can adapt, and very quickly, for example, in the next 2 weeks, we deploy other 3 countries, simply like a regulation for other 3 countries, because it's very flexible and allows us to scale very quickly.
Fabulous. Awesome. Thank you, Cristiano. So we'll get back